I wanted my marriage to work, to be married for years and years and bring our children up in a loving way.
Police recovered part of a fuse and gelignite residue from the...
He'd grab my hair, hit into my arms, my legs, drag me up the hallway.
More than 40 specially selected detectives have joined the task.
Everyone was scared of him. I got to run, or else he's going to kill me.
The bomb exploded. Mrs. Watson took the full force of the blast, dying instantly.
The blast was so strong that people had their clothes shredded off their bodies and shards of glass impacted into the body of a 12-year-old girl.
There will be no limits on their briefs to track down the perpetrators of these crimes.
My name is Debbie Marshall. I'm an investigative crime journalist and author. For the past 10 years, I've been researching and writing about the family court murders.
But there are still really crucial pieces missing, and we do need the public's help.
And decades on, this story isn't over.
I think of him every day. I talk to his photos every day.
The Parramatta blast at 10:20 last night shattered brickwork in the forecourt of the empty family court building and smashed plate glass windows.
A judge's wife is killed when an explosion rips apart their home.
It looked like a scene from Belfast. Mrs. Watson took the full force of the blast, dying instantly.
My investigation begins into the murder of Stephen Blanchard.
It's pretty galling to sit here and know that that man went to his grave and no one's been responsible for that death.
And inside the mind of a violent, vengeful offender.
I think he was saying, I want you to suffer forever.
With a city under siege, how did one man outwit police and walk the streets scot-free for more than 30 years? February 1985. After 6 years of violence and intimidation from Andrea's former husband, Leonard Warwick, Judy and her sister decide enough is enough.
Everything that was going on, Stephen being killed, things that had happened to judges, I've decided I'm going to move. So I remember we got out the map and I said, OK, where are we going to go? We didn't tell anyone why we were moving.
Even the drivers of the truck didn't know where we were heading until an hour before we got to Foster. No one knew.
So you had to be really clear that Lenny Warwick wasn't watching you before you fled Sydney.
Debbie, everyone was scared of him. Everyone who confronted him, their lives were in danger.
On the same night the sisters flee Sydney, a young man is woken from his dreams in a quiet suburban street in Northmead. The phone book lists the occupier of this house as Gary Watts, Andrea's solicitor. But Mr. Watts sold the property 6 months earlier. The new tenant is Peter Tall.
This is the house at Kira Avenue. It's occupied by Mr. Peter Tall and two of his friends.
At around 10 p.m, Peter Tall is woken by a noise outside his home. He thinks nothing of it and falls back to sleep. The next morning, he decides to replace the exhaust on his Tirana. He plans to work on his car in the street, but at the last moment decides to leave it where it is. He opens the bonnet and can't believe what he sees.
First, I thought, this is a practical joke. You know, this doesn't usually happen. This doesn't happen to me anyway.
Sticks of explosives are wired to the ignition.
Looking further at it, I discovered that all the packages were sealed, explosives written on them, and tracing the wires back to the battery in the coil, I realised, this is no practical joke, this is the real thing.
The huge bomb was designed to detonate when the car was started.
The device is simply constructed. a bundle of molinite attached to alligator clips that can be purchased from any electronics shop.
This is a photograph of the actual interior of the bonnet of the Holden Tirana in 1985.
Many years later, police reconstruct the bomb, blowing up an actual car.
The vehicle, the interior is destroyed.
By the look of this devastation, Peter Tall is the luckiest man alive. If he hadn't checked under the bonnet of his car that day, he would surely have been killed.
In the past 4 years, the family court has been a target for bombings and killings. These latest incidents indicate a new direction in the attacks on Australia's family court.
Within 2 days of hearing about the bomb attempt, Andrea's solicitor, Gary Watts, takes action.
What happened with Gary Watts and you after that?
That was it. He didn't want to represent me after that. And then I had to find another solicitor. He was scared. He was frightened. And I don't blame him.
2 murders, 3 bombings.
His wife, Pearl Watson, opened the door to their unit. The bomb exploded.
And now the attempt on the life of Andrea's solicitor. Family law is under siege. But the deadly, relentless attacks from this unknown offender aren't the only problems the court is facing. The men's rights movement becomes increasingly vocal.
What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
And continues to protest for decades to come.
About 30 demonstrators protested against Australia's family law system.
This injustice has to stop.
They object to the jailing of a man who breached a court access order to his daughter by sending her dozens of letters.
The problem with the family court is that it's unjust. It brings down decisions that break up families, brings down decisions that bar fathers from seeing their children.
The men's rights movement have really been very clever in the way they've garnered publicity. If you go back to the 1980s, when the men's rights movement started up, you had very aggressive, often dysfunctional outfits, you know, armies of men, Fathers' Organisation for Revolutionary Custody Entitlement.
All hostile.
All hostile.
However, research shows that fathers who fight for custody in the courtroom achieve better outcomes than those who settle outside.
The media coverage of the bombings was quite extraordinary. They said things like, there must be something wrong with our family law system for a man to be driven to such extremes. The court was seen to be responsible for what had occurred.
On the streets of Melbourne, Mario Pompey attacks the system that gave custody of one of his sons to the mother. Like the bombers and the guerrilla groups, he's convinced that the family court system stinks, and he wants Australia to know it.
Most custody matters resolve quickly, but some, particularly those involving high levels of domestic violence, struggle through the system. Litigants like Andrea and Leonard Warwick.
He was possessive of not having anyone there at the house, no visitors. Anyone come to the door selling anything, he would not answer the door.
With those sort of men, it's a possession. You're mine. No one's allowed to talk to you. No one's allowed to visit you.
Once people could cheaply and quickly get divorced, there was a great hope that violence, in a sense, would disappear. But violence was an issue that the extent of it was not foreseen.
As well as dealing with domestic violence, by the mid-80s, an overcrowded and underfunded family court was struggling to meet its needs.
There are a lot of pressures on the court, and there are a lot of ways in which the court isn't fully able to achieve its goals. And these go back really to the beginning of the court in January 1976. It's been 8.5 years of upward battle to try and get the kind of resources that we need to make the philosophy of the Act a reality.
Just before she retired in 1988, Chief Justice Evatt described the family court as the court of faded dreams. It has two meanings, she said, the faded dreams of people who come to our court and perhaps our own faded dreams of what could have been achieved here. By 1985, Leonard and Andrea's custody battle over their daughter Trudy has dragged on for 6 years. And Andrea still has no justice for her brother Stephen's murder 5 years earlier. She thinks only one person had sufficient motive to kill him.
Why did you think Len was involved in your brother's murder, Andrew?
Because Stephen helped me trying to pick up Trudy from Casella. The only time Stephen ever got involved. He would have a grudge against anyone interfering with his life. He was very possessive of her, and anyone trying to, well, too bad, you're gone.
In December of 1979, Andrea wanted to get back Trudy. Leonard Warwick had her in default of a family court order, and she was a little bit frightened that she might be assaulted, so she took her brother with her. Now, is that enough to set off a psychopath? Is that standing between Leonard Warwick and his child? Was that enough? However, in the trial, it was held that that was insufficient motive to commit murder.
When Leonard Warwick is tried for Stephen's murder, the court finds that while he did drive Andrea to collect Trudy, he did not play an active role in trying to retrieve her. Stephen's surfing mates still struggle to accept the court's not guilty verdict.
Wow. There's so many of you. Hello, Debbie.
Doug.
Hello, Doug. We've talked on the phone.
Yeah, that's right.
This is the first time they've seen each other in many years.
Oh, guys, thank you so much.
Until now, I've only seen a handful of photos of Stephen.
I haven't seen these for a long time. They're great.
Wow, who's out on the board?
Steve, you can tell by the
Steve, oh yeah, of course it is. Steve, yeah.
Wow.
You had the fuzzy hair. It's a good day.
That's a big day.
This film of Stephen enjoying surfing trips with his mates brings him so poignantly back to life.
You know, we'd go surfing and pull up at a beach and sleep in the back of our cars and get up and go surfing all day and go to parties, girls, surfing, parties, girls, surfing.
Doug, you've got some pics here. Can you take me through?
This is my 21st.
God, look at you. Really, you're a good-looking bunch of blokes.
And still are.
Yeah, well. Where's Steve?
There's Steve. Yeah.
Oh, wow, his hair.
Yeah, great hair.
Totally unruly.
Curly hair.
Gorgeous.
Stephen's friends share strong opinions about who murdered their mate.
It was blatantly obvious that Steve was killed by Lenny. I mean, he's going to be in jail, hopefully, for the rest of his life, but I'd still like to see him convicted for Steve's murder.
He was protecting his sister. Family violence.
Do you recall when you found out that Stephen was dead?
Yeah, my father rang up and said, "I'm sorry, son. He's dead."
I'm sorry. This is awful. It's you know, these are terrible news.
He should be here. We should be able to go up surfing with Lennox.
You never forget these things.
Murder changes you, Judy, doesn't it, as a person?
Yes. It's just... it's indescribable how it makes you feel. So devastated in your heart.
I'm frequently asked why I investigate crimes that are decades old, why I don't just leave it alone. The answer lies in the grief and trauma still deeply felt by friends and loved ones who wait, sometimes endlessly, for justice. Over the years, there is sporadic media coverage and public interest in the family court murders. But for me, there's an intriguing aspect to Leonard Warwick's life that continues to be overlooked.
We have Leonard John Warwick here, which is Lenny's father, who married Eileen Muriel Grant in 1942. 5 years later, their son, Leonard John Warwick Jr., was born, followed 18 months later by his sister, Eileen Muriel, named after her mum.
Eileen Muriel, the mum, died suddenly of a cerebral hemorrhage in 1953. In those days, they could not save her. So then Lenny Sr. had the problem of what to do with 2 young children under the age of 6. So Lenny stayed behind in Helensburgh with Dad, but by some accounts, Eileen Jr. went to live with an aunt in Western Sydney. So here's the intriguing thing. Eileen then just disappears without a trace.
Just vanishes?
Thin air. Gone.
So where is Eileen Warwick today? Family rumour has it she was last seen in Helensburgh in the mid-1960s as a passenger in a stolen car driven by a young man. Eileen was just 17 at the time.
Lenny Sr. didn't mention he had a daughter who was missing?
No.
What about Lenny Jr.? Did he mention he had a sister?
Never told me a thing about her. Didn't even know he had a sister.
So you're going down to Helensburgh twice a week just to visit their father, but you had no idea that there had been a girl in that house?
No.
Were there any vestiges of a young woman left?
No. No. There was no pictures of her. Nothing in the house.
Eileen's disappearance is also a concern for the detectives working the Leonard Warwick case.
What was your feeling with regard to the possibility that Lenny Warwick had done some harm to his sister?
It was a reality. Here we had a man who we believed was responsible for a large number of attacks and murders. The consultant police psychiatrist did a report, an assessment on Leonard Warwick, and it was chilling at the end that he put in one paragraph there that it was not beyond the realms of possibility that Leonard Warwick may have murdered Eileen Muriel Warwick, his sister. And he went further to say that in the National Park at Helensburgh, that it would have been easy to dispose of her body in that area, and he went further in saying that members of the family might be disinclined to say anything.
Kevin, this is chilling.
It is.
The national park extends to the coastline, where a body can also disappear into the sea's depths. As chilling as this police psychiatric report is, no evidence of foul play by Warwick has ever been uncovered. However, to this day, more than 50 years on, no other family member has ever heard from Eileen. To understand Leonard Warwick, I need to know more about Eileen and the childhood they shared in the small town of Helensburgh, 1 hour south of Sydney. Jim Powell and Jenny Donahoe run the local historical society.
Jim? Jenny? Hi, Jevy Marshall.
Pleased to meet you, Deb.
You're very welcome.
I'll
Come on
follow
in.
you. Thank you. It's a beautiful town.
I've got 2 surprises for you.
Okay, good.
Right?
Yeah, okay.
First of all, school photos.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes, very interesting. We have quite a few, all donations. But guess who's in the photo? It should be there.
There it is, Len Warwick.
Yes.
So where is...
So he's over here somewhere.
Is that him?
It could be. Yep.
Oh, it looks a spitting image of him, Jenny.
Yeah. Okay, we've got here Eileen. Eileen Warwick. Look at her there. Isn't she a darling with the hair pulled back?
Oh, my goodness. So it's 1959 here, it says, so that would make her...
11.
11. Look at her with the pigtails. Yes. Jenny, look. Fascinating. So Eileen and what we think is Lenny here are in the same class.
Yes.
Jenny, finally you've given us a chance to put a human face to a little girl who's missing. Where is she?
We don't know.
And Jenny, you said you had 2 things to show me. What's the other thing?
OK. This is a legal notice out of the paper around about 1994 when Lenny Warwick Sr. died.
After 14 days from publication of this notice, an application for administration on presumption of death, with leave to distribute the estate of Eileen Muriel Warwick, late of 37 Corriedale Street, Miller. Where's Miller? Green Valley.
Yes, Western Sydney.
Occupation unknown will be made by Leonard John Warwick, a brother of the deceased. So let's be clear about what this actually means, Jenny. Is he trying to claim, do you think, a portion of his father's estate that was left to Eileen?
That would be correct.
Why is he presuming she's dead? Who lives at Corriedale Street, Miller, Green Valley, Jenny?
At this stage, I don't know.
I've come to the address quoted in the legal notice, Corriedale Street in Western Sydney.
I know this is a long shot, but I'm hoping that someone may recall Eileen from her photograph or remember her living in the street. This is her last known address, but it doesn't look like there's anyone home. Hello? Try next door. We're actually looking for a young woman who went missing in 1965.
Okay.
And she lived, we think, a couple of houses away.
Right. I'm not familiar with the area because I've only just moved in.
What was their name? That's the house.
Oh, is it?
Yes. Marks.
That's them. That's the family.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lily Marks is Auntie Lily, the sister of Eileen's mother.
No, I've never seen her before. I knew the family reasonably well.
Yeah.
And there was a young lass there called Tracy.
Yep.
But she didn't look anything like Eileen.
That was her cousin.
Oh, right.
Did you know that family?
Yes, I did. Not a lot. I mean, all the kids went to school together, so I knew the kids. And what was her first name?
Lily.
Lily.
Yeah.
She was a very strange lady.
Was she? In which way?
She was, well, just the way she ran the family and the kids.
We now know that Eileen lived here in Corriedale Street for a time in her mid-teens. But why does no one remember her? I'm hoping that Eileen's school records may reveal something more.
So, this is the Register of Admission for the high school at Heathcote, 1960 through 1964.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, we have to be very gentle.
Oh.
See, Fitzgerald, Green, Wharton, Warwick.
Oh.
There we go.
Eileen Warwick. There you are, our girl.
Right, so date of admission is 1st of February 1961.
How old was she then?
She would have been just 13.
Wow.
What's the date of leaving? 1st of October 1963.
63. And that's the equivalent of... She would have been in Year 9 then. Our equivalent of Year 9 then. Why was she leaving school at 15?
I don't know. It feels like the closest that we've gotten to her so far.
It's definitely the closest.
So Eileen left school in 1963. Where to next? Leonard Warwick may know more about his sister's whereabouts. And I also want to ask him a few questions about Stephen Blanchard's murder.
So I've written a letter to Warwick. Good luck with that, I think. But it's certainly something I didn't do when I was writing the book.
Read it out. Let's have a listen.
Dear Mr. Warwick, you've maintained your innocence for your crimes despite your conviction in court. You did not incriminate yourself during the inquest or trial and have maintained your right to silence. I'm offering you now an opportunity to speak publicly for the first time, exercising your right of reply. I'm writing to you with a series of questions relating to our ongoing investigations into the disappearance of your sister, Eileen Muriel Warwick, and the murder of your brother-in-law, Stephen Blanchard. We're aware that you placed a notice in the papers through a Helensburgh lawyer asking for Eileen to come forward with regard to matters pertaining to your father's will. Can you please answer the following? Did Eileen ever respond to the notice that you placed? If not, when was the last time you had contact with Eileen? Where did Eileen go in 1963 after she left high school? Regarding the murder of Stephen Blanchard, did you own a boat in February 1980? If so, where did you keep it? Did you purposely hide it from Andrea? How do you account for the fact that you were under suspicion for the family court murders for years but not charged until 2015? Thank you for your time. I anticipate that a response may take a while, but I'm happy to wait for that. Regards, Debbie Marshall. I was tempted to write, well, I've got plenty of time and so do you. That was a bit cheeky. What do you think?
Well, it's certainly direct.
Well, yes.
But do you think you're going to get an answer?
I doubt it. I can tell you, I'm not on his Christmas card list. Can you imagine?
After fleeing Sydney, Andrea and Judy settle into their new lives. But they never stop looking over their shoulder.
We sort of made it a fun game for the kids, a drill that if ever Len found us, we had an escape plan to get out.
Judy has not only left behind her home, but also friends at her close-knit Jehovah's Witness community.
Did you take solace in their faith?
Yes, it did help me because it had given me a set of standards that I'd been looking for all my life.
Did Andrea and Trudy ever attend?
Yes, we went to the Lunaire Hall, which was shared by 3 congregations.
The Kingdom Hall?
Yeah.
In the weeks following the sisters' move, some of the congregation began to receive menacing phone calls. Among them, Inga and Greg Redfern.
My recollection is probably the first phone call happened around May-ish, 1985.
What did the caller actually say?
Well, he was just inquiring where they had gone to. He had some matters to attend to, some family matters to attend to, and he just needed to get in touch with her so that, he could resolve those issues.
Was he polite?
No, I wouldn't say polite. Quite assertive.
So there was a second call then?
So he was more agitated this time. He started to express that in some angry questions about, where they had gone to. He said, "You must know where they've gone." And Ingy just said, "I don't know, up north." There was definite intent in his language. It was agitation. He needed to know something and he wanted that information. There was a third call. He was very upset. He again said, "You must know where she's gone." And I got a bit agitated and I said, "Listen, mate," I said, "we don't know where she's gone. Do not call here again."
The mystery caller doesn't let up, but those who helped the sisters move remain tight-lipped about their whereabouts. In the weeks that follow, the family court killer plans his revenge. Two months later, police receive a call from the Jehovah's Witness elders about a smashed window. An intruder has broken in, sustained cuts in the process, and left blood on the carpet. But strangely, nothing is missing. The elders believe the incident is a minor act of vandalism and arrange to get the window fixed. The blood-stained carpet remains. The following week, the congregation once again arrives for their Sunday morning service. Amongst them, devoted couple Graham and Joy Wykes.
It was July, so it was very cold. It was a cold, cold day. But it was very bright and crisp morning, blue skies. You knew you were alive. Yeah.
Who was with you, Joy, when you went to the hall that morning?
My youngest daughter, Miranda, who was 10 at the time.
And Graham had already gone with Elaine?
Yeah, he was already there.
When Joy enters the hall, she sees the same window has been broken again.
When I got there, Graham was at that same window. Oh, no, it's broken again, the same window. Nobody cut themselves that time.
The guest speaker leading the service is Elder David Winder.
We greeted the friends as they streamed in. One explained, oh, look, the week before they'd had a break-in. There was blood, someone cut themselves badly.
We went and sat down together.
The Wykes family was sitting very close in the front.
They were in the front row, right in front of the stage, yes.
As the service starts, the congregation is unaware that a time bomb has been planted beneath the speaker's platform.
As I said, it was really cold. We had a rug over our knees. I had gloves on, I had kid gloves. We were holding hands and I thought, oh, his hand would be cold. I pulled the rug up and covered our hands with that rug and he whispered to me, I love you. And that's when the bomb went off.
The bomb exploded under the dais and flung the congregation around the hall. The building shattered around them. The roof literally fell in.
The next thing I knew, I was on the ground and someone was standing over me saying, Joy, Joy, Joy.
The blast was so strong that people had their clothes shredded off their bodies and shards of glass impacted into the body of a 12-year-old girl.
I wasn't in a state to be sitting up looking around. I had severe head injuries, so I wasn't aware of what was going on.
A 3-month-old baby girl suffered serious head injuries from falling masonry. A 31-year-old woman is in a serious condition at Westmead Hospital.
All I remember was like a tremendous electric shock.
The crater gouged in the concrete under the stage shows the strength of the blast.
But at that stage, you didn't actually hear anything because the eardrums were blown out anyway. I knew I was moving. Obviously, I went up through the portal frame and landed down again outside the building in the sunshine, covered with debris and metal roofing and that kind of thing.
With multiple broken bones and other injuries, David Winder's escape from death is nothing short of miraculous.
6 people are undergoing surgery at Liverpool Hospital and 1 other is in intensive care. Now, Sydney's 10,000 witnesses must be wondering what they've done to draw such violence upon them.
Joy Wykes will spend months recovering from shocking injuries to her head and other parts of her body. In all, more than 50 people injured, dozens taken to hospital, and 1 dead.
My first memories was really in ICU. I had already been into surgery. I recall asking, where's my husband all afternoon. A doctor came and told me, yeah.
What did he say?
We do have bad news for you. And I'd been asking and asking, and I must have really already realised that he wasn't going to be there.
And I heard one of the elders in our congregation say, her father Graham's died. And I prayed to God and said if that was the best thing, because he might have suffered and been in a lot of pain, that might have been the best thing.
He was not quite 38 when he died. I was almost 36. You know, a whole lifetime has gone. And you can't imagine what our life would be like. And that's upsetting.
Elaine's victim impact statement, she said, they are memories that a 13-year-old should not have or be troubled by. I do feel that my childhood innocence ended that day.
They were very close to their dad, the whole three of them. Anything for his girls he'd do. He was so proud of them.
News of the bombing quickly reaches the sisters.
I was shocked when we heard it. I could not speak for a long time and I just burst out crying. Judy was so upset. She was just heartbroken.
They announced that the hall had been bombed. My daughter Natasha was standing next to me and she said, "Mum, that was Len."
Wow.
And I immediately started to shake. Uncontrollably, I could not, my whole body was shaking. And I rang down the bomb squad. They had their suspicions about being Len that had done it. And I said, "That's my congregation." And they said, "Oh, that's what the connection is."
After speaking with Judy, investigators are able to join the dots.
And I believe that he set out to do that damage, to kill as many people as he could, because it was that congregation of that church that assisted Andrea to flee away from this domestic violence.
That was your congregation. Was that bomb meant for you?
Yes. Apparently Len had the idea the witnesses were hiding his wife and child. It was me that was hiding his wife and child.
Kevin Woods heads to the scene. He's joined by forensic experts and an army of investigators.
Police admit they're no nearer to solving this apparently senseless act. They say their only course of action now, a piece-by-piece examination of what's left of the church, in the hope that one piece will link the attacker to this bombing and possibly even others.
A painstaking search of the wreckage reveals remnants of the bomb.
It was identical to the bomb from Northmead. We got lucky up there, and so did the victim, that the bomb was not detonated. So at the next bombing at the Jehovah's Witness Hall, we were able to establish that the same explosive and the same detonator was used.
Criminal profiler Chris Illingsworth analyses crime scenes to build a profile of an offender's methods and motives. I've asked her to use her expertise to review all the family court murders. This profile will then be compared to the one she builds for Stephen Blanchard's killer. If the profiles are a match, this may reveal who could have murdered Stephen.
What the offender also did here, like with the other ones, was that he ripped away the sanctity, the safety, the security of what for these people was their home ground.
So nowhere's safe anymore.
Yeah, well, once again, the offender is reaching in and saying, "I can still reach you, I can get you."
It was a shocking, shocking hit on completely innocent people, as were the other bombs.
Yeah, this is cold and callous. There was no remorse here at all. These people were collateral damage in the offender's campaign, and until the offender gains some satisfaction somehow, it will continue.
But for all his meticulous planning, at this crime scene, the family court bomber makes a fateful error.
Now, the offender a week earlier broke in through a window like this. This is a police reconstruction back at the time. Now, as he broke in, he actually cut himself, and he's still entered the premises. He's gone in through the window, gone in onto the carpeted floor, and he's left a trail of blood.
This spot here was the window which police believe the church was entered on both occasions. As you can see, a large section of the carpet, which was covered with human blood, has been taken away for analysis.
This became crucial evidence, this blood that was left at the scene. Suddenly its importance was known.
In 1985, DNA testing is in its infancy. It will take almost 3 decades for the blood-stained carpet to give up its secrets. For now, all police can do is check the blood type. The stain on the carpet is O group. Which suspect has O group blood? Leonard Warwick. Police are keen to see if their prime suspect has any lacerations, but wounds heal over time, and time is against them. Months earlier, the court ordered Warwick to vacate his home and for it to be sold. Warwick refused to budge. For police, it's an opportunity to seize and search the property.
We strip-searched him looking for any wound. Now, the timing of it was that the break-in was on the 13th of July, so 17 days later, superficial glass wounds to the face or the arm would have healed in that time in any event, but we had to be sure.
There are no signs of a laceration, but police do find a list of names of Jehovah's Witness elders, their addresses and phone numbers. With still only circumstantial evidence linking Warwick to the crimes, either by stealth or simply good luck, once again the prime suspect slips out of reach of the law.
Kevin, if he was under surveillance, how come he managed to successfully set the tour bomb and detonate the Jehovah's Witness bomb? What happened?
He was under sporadic surveillance. He wasn't under surveillance all the time. We simply did not have the resources.
A frightened and worried Len Warwick hopes he can convince someone he's totally innocent, despite the vigorous attentions of the New South Wales Police Force.
Incensed by the scrutiny of the task force, Warwick speaks to the media and paints himself as a victim of police harassment.
In 1980, when Judge Opaz was shot, my former wife made certain allegations about me, which are totally untrue, which has degenerated into a harassment campaign.
And as these pictures, verified by the New South Wales Ombudsman, show, police mounted an intense surveillance operation against him. When Warwick approached them, they even tried to destroy his evidence. The light flare happened when they forced open the back of the camera.
It seems to me, with all respect, that he was outwitting all of you.
He was outwitting us to the stage that we didn't have acceptable evidence that could be used in a trial to gain his conviction. However, we knew that he was the bomber. We put together whatever evidence we could at that stage. Yes, he did commit 2 bombings whilst the task force was going, and he got away with those. So yes, to that degree, I'll say he did outwit, yes.
The building shattered around them. The roof literally fell in.
That must have been incredibly frustrating for you, knowing that this man was literally getting away with murder.
Yes, there's no doubt about that.
I am making gradual progress in my search for information about Eileen Warwick, Leonard Warwick's younger sister. I posted on the Helensburgh Community Facebook page, inviting members to come forward with any information they may have. One person who says she was once very close to the Warwick family sent me this letter.
I'm writing this letter in the hope that you might have some word on Eileen. And then she goes on about her high school days. I remember that she was a very pretty girl with long black hair. Then this. I remember going to school one day, and when I got out of the bus in the afternoon, Eileen was there in normal clothes, not her school uniform. There was a man in town who took a lot of interest in Eileen. What I didn't understand as a child, I understand now. The last time I saw Eileen, she came to my house and spoke to my mother. All my mother said to me was, I have enough problems of my own. I don't want her coming here with hers. I never saw Eileen again, but weeks later I asked her father where she was. He said that she ran away. Now I just think how very sad that a young girl can go missing from a small town nearly 60 years ago and nobody ever went looking for her. Eileen had gone to the mother because remember her own mother's dead. And this woman has said, I've got enough problems of my own. And where is she? What has happened to her?
Now, someone also contacted me and they mentioned Alan Baker.
The case of Alan Baker was perhaps the biggest test yet for truth in sentencing. 2 decades haven't dimmed the horror of his crimes. With his accomplice Gary Crump, they shot dead one man for $20, days later abducting Virginia Morse from a farmhouse in country New South Wales.
Alan Baker's crimes are some of the most horrific I have ever read about. So horrific, many of the details were suppressed. Not only did Alan Baker and Leonard Warwick come from Helensburgh, they were also neighbours and childhood friends. It's a long shot, but as I've already written to Warwick, I may as well write to Baker too. I want to know if he knew Eileen and if he knows anything about her disappearance. Chris and I have been digging into police records to better understand how Stephen Blanchard's killer may have disposed of his body.
A party of 4 people on a cruiser found it floating on the surface, despite the 11 house bricks that had been attached with a red nylon rope. The victim had been shot once through the forehead.
In 1985, a study was commissioned by New South Wales Police to determine how far a body might drift in the ebb and flow of the tide. One of the study's contributors is retired marine engineer Alex Nielsen.
So, Lex, what is drogue tracking?
It's putting what's called a drogue, which is basically like a parachute but in the water. And as the tide moves, it moves the drogue along with it.
The study reveals that Stephen's body was deposited in the main channel of Cowan Creek.
So we're in Cowan Creek. This red spot represents where the body was actually found, which is literally where we're sitting in the water right now. And these lines over here with the directionality arrows are the drift tests that were done.
The results show that the tide would only have carried Stephen's body a short distance.
And this one in particular has hit a bullseye where the body is.
The report concludes that it's highly unlikely that Stephen's body was deposited from the shore.
So for your money, Lex, whoever murdered Stephen Blanchard, there was a 99.4% chance that that body was thrown into Cowan Creek from a boat.
That's quite right, yeah.
Lex, the Supreme Court found that Lenny Warwick, the family court bomber, was not guilty of Stephen Blanchard's murder. And yes, one of the reasons was that he didn't own a boat.
Right.
What do you say to that somebody didn't own a boat?
Well, I mean, you can hire a boat, or you may have a friend that has a boat. I mean, not owning a boat doesn't preclude you using a boat.
Police made inquiries about Warwick hiring a boat from the Cowan Creek area, but came up with nothing. But in a city of waterways and beaches, it stands to reason there are many other places to hire or steal a boat and trailer.
So with the body being deposited from a boat, the next question is, where was the boat launched from?
There are several boat ramps near where Stephen's body was found. One of the closest and most isolated is a marina called Acuna Bay.
So we're standing at Acuna Bay at the marina, surrounded by bushland, as you can see. The nearest house is probably 10 kilometres away. So there's no one to see what you might do here. There are people who sometimes stay on the boats, but if you're pulling up with a trailer of some kind to unload your boat, you're only doing what you're supposed to be doing here. So I think this is the most likely location where Stephen's body was brought, with a boat and a trailer, and this would be where the offender unloaded Stephen, took him out in the water and disposed of his body.
The question is, why here? Why travel more than 50 kilometres in the dead of night when there are waterways much closer to the Blanchard home?
And what we know about the offender already is that he likes privacy. He likes isolation.
Yeah, and we know that he's comfortable operating at night, he's nocturnal, and we know from offender behaviour that when you're getting rid of a body, it's high risk. They need to know the escape routes, so it says that this offender has been here before. He knows that this is a safe spot to launch from. This is his best chance of getting rid of the body.
Serador is trying to determine if Leonard Warwick has any connection to Cowan Creek.
Scores of firefighters and volunteers have been seriously overcome by the appalling smoke.
Tell me if this looks familiar.
What have you got?
Throughout the Warringah region, there were still pockets of fire burning in isolated, often inaccessible areas from Cowan Creek across to the western regions of Church Point.
So this is a news report reporting on bushfires around the Cowan Creek area in Ku-ring-gai Chase National Park, just weeks before Stephen Blanchard's body was found.
It is a grave situation. About 500 firefighters were working shifts in the area today. That included help from the Army.
Could Warwick have been fighting those fires?
Well, that's what it's got me thinking.
We contact New South Wales Fire and Rescue, requesting access to the occurrence books from the time, which lists every incident fire crews responded to. We hear back. There is no record of Warwick being dispatched to fight fires around Cowan Creek in December 1979. Although it is our strong belief that Warwick had the motive, means and opportunity to murder his brother-in-law, we cannot prove that he had a connection to this area. But when police searched Warwick's property in 2015, they found a pamphlet that referenced Ku-ring-gai Chase National Park. This evidence was presented at trial, but Justice Garling still determined it was not enough to prove Warwick knew the Cowan Creek area. I'm returning to Helensburgh to see what historian Jim Powell recalls of Leonard Warwick and his missing sister, Eileen.
Tell me about Lenny Warwick. Was he a popular bloke around Helensburgh?
No, I wouldn't say he was a popular bloke, but people didn't have anything bad against him. It was just that he was not a known person around there because he didn't play sport and he didn't drink at the pub. And they're not people that you say were popular in a sense because they kept out of the public eye.
Do you know where Eileen is?
I'd love to know where Eileen is because when she became pregnant, we know that happened, that she did it. But what happened to the child, we don't know.
Sorry, let me pull you up there. What do you mean you know she was pregnant?
Well, she apparently told her friends that she was pregnant. So that's a pretty well known for most of the people in Helensburgh. At that particular age, there was a few of them that actually became pregnant under the legal age, you might say, you know, as 14 and 15-year-olds. That was quite a thing then. I don't think the pill was around in just right. So, and that happened quite, you know, not common, but quite more than it would these days.
What I don't understand is this. If people in the town were so curious about what had happened to Eileen, why weren't there more concerted efforts to find her? I now have even more questions about the fate of this missing young woman. Soon after my trip to Helensburgh, I receive a handwritten letter in the post.
Hello.
Hey, Serador. How are you?
Debbie, how's it going?
Yeah, good. I've got something to tell you. Do you remember when I wrote to Alan Baker, Lenny Warwick's childhood mate, who ended up being a rapist and killer?
Yeah.
Well, I've got a letter back from him. Have a listen to this. I asked him a question in my letter to him, do you know what happened to Eileen Warwick? And he wrote this. I'd like to think that Eileen lived a long and happy life, but with all that I've learned of her brother in the last few years, I have my doubts. Now, the other thing he tells me in this letter, he doesn't say much, but he talks about Eileen. I asked him a question in my letter to him, do you know what happened to Eileen Warwick? And he wrote this. I seen Len was in the number 3 Protestant boys' homes, and it was there that I last spoke to him, and I never seen him again until 2021 at Long Bay Jail. So isn't that incredible? I had no idea, did you, that Lenny Warwick was ever in a boys' home? This is new information.
Mittagong Training Centre for Boys was a correctional centre for juveniles. It was a notoriously sad and brutal place. If Warwick did spend time there, I wonder how this environment would have shaped his juvenile heart and mind. Whatever happened, Leonard Warwick remains an enigma until he unleashes his catastrophic reign of terror decades later. In 1986, the police marshal their evidence for the coronial inquest into the murder of Graham Wykes.
At the inquest into his death, Leonard Warwick has been named the principal police suspect, and the incident has been linked with the recent spate of family court bombings.
6 years, but still no arrests. Not for Justice Oppas, Justice G, Pearl Watson, the Parramatta court bombing, the car bomb, or the bombing of Judy's congregation.
The wounded, stunned and shocked, waited for help.
No arrest either for the murder of Stephen Blanchard.
At which point did you ever think, God's sake, are we ever going to get this guy?
Well, yes, that did come a situation at the coroner's court where we placed all the available evidence before Kevin Waller.
The inquest attracts a great deal of public interest. Each day, the gallery is packed with onlookers.
This afternoon, his former wife, Andrea Blanchard, gave evidence of their divorce and custody battle in the family court, which was decided in her favour. She also said she was still in fear of her husband.
It's, sad. All of us there, and he's staring at you with those eyes, goes right through you, sitting right there. Not a motion on his face.
While police lack any direct evidence connecting Warwick to the bombings and murders, he is the only suspect with a common link to all the crimes.
This afternoon, Leonard Warwick finally took the witness stand, but refused to answer any questions.
In response to questions, Warwick repeatedly replied he would not answer any.
Everyone was just absolutely frustrated with him.
The coroner's inquest into the bombing of the Casula Jehovah's Witness Church has ended, and no one will be charged with the bombing and murder of one of the parishioners. During the inquest, police named Leonard Warwick as a key suspect in the church blast and recent family court violence, but the coroner said there was no prima facie case against anyone.
The finding dashes police hopes the case will be pushed through to the Department of Public Prosecutions.
Mr. Waller said after periodic surveillance, the police had failed to come up with hard evidence.
Detectives are back to square one.
We did know that the offender was Warwick. Simply, we didn't have enough evidence to proceed with the law the way it was at the time. There was no tendency and coincidence evidence, there was no DNA evidence, and we would have failed.
Advances in DNA technology are still years away, as is the admittance in court of evidence which would allow police to connect the Kingdom Hall bombing with the other family court attacks. For now, Warwick walks away a free man. Next time...
What's the most violent thing you've done?
Well, I used to shoot rabbits. I suppose that's pretty violent.
An insight into the mind of the prime suspect.
He's stunningly dangerous. Not motivated by money or love, but something in the realm of hate.
Andrea makes the ultimate sacrifice in the hope the carnage will stop.
I had to do something to stop all these killings and innocent people being hurt.
And after more than 3 decades, the smoking gun that finally leads to an arrest.
A man in custody over the family court bombings and murders in the 1980s.
If you or someone you know is affected by any of the issues raised in this program, please contact the following services. Lifeline 13 14. 1-800-RESPECT. 1-800-737-737.